All right, let's dive into a story that's, well, it's pretty fascinating and honestly a little unsettling. This is a personal investigation that doesn't start at a crime scene, but was something you might find in your own browser history, a digital black hole, a mysterious 2-week gap where someone's online life just, poof, vanished.
And it all kicks off with this single, frantic question. Imagine looking at your own digital history, a timeline you thought you knew, and finding a huge chunk just missing. It's that feeling of digital vertigo, where your own record just doesn't match reality. What happened here?
And that one question, it just explodes into something so much bigger for all of us, doesn't it? Our lives are all chronicled online. But what happens when that footprint, your footprint, gets changed or even wiped clean, without you even knowing? What story does that tell? And more importantly, who's the one writing it?
To figure that out, we have to start with the main problem, the central anomaly. So first up, the 2-week gap. This is where we're going to look at a timeline that's totally in conflict with itself.
So check this out. This is the conflict at the very heart of the mystery. On the one hand, you've got the digital void. 2 full weeks, January 7th to the 21st, with 0 YouTube activity. Nothing. Now, inside that void, the individual clearly remembers being in the hospital from the 11th to the 15th. But the official hospital record tells a completely different story. It says the discharge date was January 20th. That's a 5-day gap where this person was physically at home, but on paper, they were still in a hospital bed.
Okay, so you have 2 conflicting timelines. Where do you even start looking for the truth? Well, in this case, the first real clues weren't in some dusty file cabinet, they were online. Let's talk about these ghosts in the machine.
And this is where it gets really weird. While this person was supposedly in the hospital, totally cut off from their phone and computer, their digital life just kept going. Videos were premiering, social media posts were going up, and then, get this, a brand new video, the heist video, drops on January 21st, just 1 day after the hospital claimed they were discharged. How is that even possible?
Well, this leads us to a really important forensic term, unauthorized device access. This wasn't just a glitch or, some pre-scheduled posts they forgot about. No, this is clear, hard evidence that somebody else, a third party, was managing this person's online identity while they physically couldn't. Someone else was pulling the strings.
So, with the digital evidence pointing to somebody else being involved, the investigation pivots. It turns to the physical records, to the doctor's folder. If the digital world was a mess, what would the paper trail have to say?
And wow, the difference is just stark. You have the patient's reality on one side and the hospital's official record on the other. This 5-day gap is what the source material calls an administrative ghost. It's a period where you exist in one place, but the official documents say you're somewhere else entirely. It's like you're a ghost on paper.
And digging just a little deeper into that folder, the red flags just keep popping up. There's a doctor's referral, but it's dated January 16th. That's a day after the patient remembers being home. Then you've got this vague, clinical-sounding language, exacerbation of symptoms, used to justify holding them longer. And then there's this really strange detail, a nasal swab, described only as oddly tickling, with no test results ever put in the file. None.
So, what was that about? It probably wasn't your standard medical test. The source suggests this falls into a category called biometric collection, and the key here is the missing follow-up. Think about it. A medical test is done to get a result, right? If there's no result, it really implies the purpose wasn't about diagnosis. It was about something else. It was about gathering data.
So we've got digital ghosts, a paper trail that contradicts itself. Okay, now it's time to put all of these pieces together and see what kind of picture they actually make.
When you just lay it all out, step by step, the pattern becomes, well, it's undeniable. You start with a simple question about a gap in a YouTube history. That leads you to confirm someone else was using their accounts. Then you find medical records that don't line up with reality. The conclusion you're forced to make? This wasn't just a series of mistakes. This was the careful construction of a completely fabricated story.
And that's the thing. As the source material puts it, these aren't random errors. They're not unfortunate coincidences. They are specific, identifiable clues, forensic markers of something called identity spoofing. It's the deliberate creation of a false story about a person's life, designed to control their narrative.
So, what do we take away from all this? Well, it's about how this whole digital deep dive became a powerful tool, a way to reclaim a personal story that had been completely hijacked.
You see, uncovering that 2-week gap in the YouTube history, that was everything. It was the key that unlocked the whole thing, because it totally dismantled the official story that the person was simply incapacitated. I mean, think about it. You don't need to actively suppress someone's online voice if they're truly incapacitated, right? The silence itself became the evidence.
And this quote right here, it just says it all. The very act of documenting that digital void, of proving the absence of a voice, was the most powerful weapon in this whole fight. It blew the whole deception wide open just by highlighting what wasn't there.
And so, that leaves us with one last, pretty unsettling thought. In an age where identity is split between the real world and our digital one, what happens when both get manipulated? If the records that are supposed to define you are changed, how would you even begin to prove who you are and where you've been? The answer might be a lot harder to find than any of us want to think.